the likelihood of a fight with you and Terence Crawford, it would be one of the biggest in boxing.
We don't talking about yet about the fight. Me and Turkana know each other, and then we wanna see what.
Floyd Mayweather knows boxing better than anyone, and when he talks about a fight, he doesn't need to spell things out directly. He lets his words do the work. When it comes to Canelo versus Crawford, Mayweather hasn't hesitated to point out just how much of a challenge this would be for Crawford. And if you really pay attention, it's clear he sees this as a fight that's not just difficult for Crawford, but one that might not even be competitive. In his words, a mismatch.
What I have to say to Canelo is this. You proved yourself already. You proved yourself. You fought a lot of great fighters. You tested yourself.
Mayweather has always been a master at breaking down the nuances of boxing, and when discussing this potential matchup, he hasn't exactly been subtle. While he's given Crawford his respect as a pound-for-pound great, his words are loaded with hints that this fight is a step too far. He doesn't need to say outright that Canelo is too big and too strong for Crawford. He just keeps repeating what Canelo does well, and that tells you everything you need to know.
The only thing I see that I favor Canelo is that, you know, his weight.
Yeah.
And that he's more bigger. You know what I'm saying? That's the only thing. But as far as skill set wise, IQ, I feel like Crawford can match anybody and probably do weight.
Canelo's strong, but it's nothing I've never felt before after being in the sport over 20 years, Mayweather said, referencing his own fight with Canelo back in 2013. But there's a key difference. Mayweather fought Canelo when the Mexican star was young, raw, and still learning. Even then, Mayweather had to be at his absolute best to dominate him. A decade later, Canelo has grown into a rock-solid 168-pounder who systematically breaks down bigger men. And that's where the problem for Crawford begins. Crawford is, without question, one of the most skilled boxers in the world. He's a slick switch hitter, he's got impressive timing, and he knows how to adjust mid-fight better than almost anyone. But skills alone don't win fights when the size gap is this massive.
Everybody keeps bringing up Canelo. I think that's weird, you know, because you'd have to gain like, 20 pounds?
Yeah.
But they say that's the money fight. That's the mega fight. That's the money fight. That's the only thing that makes sense for Terence Crawford.
Well, you know what I mean? Catch weight. We can do something.
Mayweather, like many others, has always preached that weight classes exist for a reason. It's one of his core philosophies, and he built his career around fighting at the right weight against the right opponents. He was never reckless about moving up in weight, always making sure that he held the physical advantages. He even made Canelo drain down to 152 pounds when they fought, just to make sure he wasn't giving up too much size. But Crawford? He's looking at jumping 2 full divisions against a fighter who's already proven himself against bigger men. Mayweather sees the danger in that, even if he doesn't say it outright.
He have everything in a fighter, a complete fighter. He don't have power in the punches, but when you that kind of fighter, you don't need it.
You think that was the toughest fight you faced?
No.
What do you
I
think
think he's tough fights and difficult fights. That was.
One thing that stands out when Mayweather talks about this fight is how much he emphasizes Canelo's strengths. He has great body shots, he breaks guys down, Floyd has pointed out, and that's no small thing. Crawford has never been in the ring with a body puncher like Canelo. At 147 pounds, Bud has been able to control fights and dictate the pace. But against Canelo, he's facing a fighter whose entire game plan revolves around systematically taking away his opponent's legs and making them wilt under pressure. That's a nightmare for any fighter moving up in weight, and Mayweather knows it.
They talk all the crazy stuff about me going up and having a tough time, but he went up in weight and lost. That's the difference. I went up weight and won. He went up and lost. You know, so let's not do that, Canelo.
Then there's the issue of power. Crawford has respectable knockout power at 147, but knocking out welterweights is not the same as hurting a guy who's been fighting super middleweights for years. Mayweather knows what that weight difference feels like. He fought big guys before, but he also understood how to neutralize them with movement, speed, and defense. Crawford isn't a pure defensive genius like Mayweather. He likes to engage, he likes to trade, and he takes calculated risks. But against a fighter like Canelo, those risks could become costly.
Get his big bank and get out. His big bank is who? Canelo. He willing to take that gamble, see if he can beat him. If he beats him, he may go fight Benavidez next. If he don't beat him, he say, okay, I took it as high as I could go. I'm done.
Mayweather has also talked about Canelo's ability to control the ring. Unlike younger, inexperienced fighters who get frustrated when opponents move, Canelo is a patient, intelligent pressure fighter. He doesn't just chase his opponents, he methodically cuts off the ring, forcing them into corners and positions where he can unload his power shots. Crawford might be a great counterpuncher, but he's never faced someone who will walk through his shots and still keep pressing forward. That's something Mayweather has subtly highlighted when discussing Canelo's evolution. Crawford's ability to switch stances is often praised as one of his greatest strengths, but Mayweather knows that Canelo has already seen and beaten southpaws before.
At the end of the day, I don't want to have credit to face Crawford, right? So no matter what, but you know, you never know. You never know in boxing.
Absolutely.
I'll go up and down and fight everybody out there.
Not just any southpaws either. He's faced much bigger, harder-hitting southpaws. Crawford's skill might be greater, but he won't have the luxury of making mistakes against someone as experienced and disciplined as Canelo. Then there's the endurance factor. Crawford has always looked sharp in the later rounds, but how does that hold up when he's carrying an extra 20 pounds and absorbing shots to the body from a guy who has broken down elite-level fighters at 168? That's what Mayweather sees as the real issue here. Even if Crawford starts strong, the physical toll will add up, and once Canelo starts landing clean, that fight could change quickly.
I don't think it's a fight Canelo really wants, if I'm honest, because I think he feels like he won't get a lot of credit beating a light middleweight. And Crawford's going to move a lot in that fight, which is not ideal for Canelo. But what's his options? I mean, like, you know, if Bivol wins, he could fight him for undisputed. That's a very tough fight.
Mayweather has never been one to give away his full thoughts unless he wants to make a point. And in this case, his avoidance of making a direct prediction is telling. If he really believed Crawford could outbox and beat Canelo, he would say so. But instead, he spent more time pointing out how dangerous Canelo is. That's a quiet way of saying he doesn't see this as a fight Crawford can win. It's not that Crawford isn't skilled enough, it's that he's giving up too much in size, strength, and durability. Mayweather built his career on making sure he was never in that position, and that's why he likely sees this as a mismatch. Crawford might have the heart, but Canelo has the physical advantages that become more and more obvious as the rounds go on.
Crawford versus Canelo.
Who heard it?
Listen how I said it.
Hey, are we getting this
Crawford
confirmation
versus
here
Canelo.
first?
You understand? Yeah, it's confirmed. Man, what?
Say less.
Crawford versus Canelo, not the other way around. Team Crawford, stand up. Pound for pound, the best in the world. Soon to be the super middleweight champion of the world. Yeah.
Canelo doesn't need to be faster than Crawford. He doesn't need to be more skilled. He just needs to do what he does best. Walk his man down, invest in body shots, and break him down over time. That's how he's beaten bigger guys, and that's how he would approach this fight. Mayweather understands that better than anyone. And that's why when he talks about this matchup, it's all about what Canelo does well. The conversation surrounding Crawford's chances in this fight has taken on a life of its own, with opinions ranging from cautious optimism to outright dismissal of his chances. But as Mayweather and other seasoned observers have hinted, the physical gap between these two fighters isn't just a factor, it might be the deciding factor. While many are drawn to Crawford's adaptability and intelligence inside the ring, there are concerns about whether those attributes alone can bridge the sheer difference in size, strength, and power when stepping into Canelo's domain.
Like the Canelo got everything he wanted because he was the holdout for the money. The fight's going to be at 168.
I'm going to tell you my prediction is Canelo's going to walk him down. Crawford is going to do a lot of defense. Now, if he...
For years, Mayweather has emphasized the importance of fundamentals in boxing. Hit and don't get hit, control the pace, make the opponent fight on your terms. That's exactly what he did when he fought Canelo. He neutralized every strength the young Mexican star had, keeping him off balance, making him hesitant, and exposing his rawness. But as Showbiz the Adult pointed out, that was a different Canelo. Today's Canelo is seasoned, calculated, and ruthless. He has fought and beaten elite-level opponents at much higher weights than anything Crawford has experienced. The idea that Crawford can come in and simply outbox Canelo the way Mayweather did doesn't hold up when you consider the realities of size and power.
First and foremost, motherfuckers want him to fight Crawford. That's a circus fight. So if we gonna do that, we could do the Jake too. You know, if y'all ain't got a problem with Crawford, y'all shouldn't have a problem with Jake. At least Jake a cruiserweight.
Canelo has developed an approach that works exceptionally well against slick, mobile fighters who rely on skill over brute force. He's not the reckless, overeager fighter who swung wildly at Mayweather. Now he applies intelligent pressure, methodically cutting down the ring and targeting the body with surgical precision. Even against someone like Dimitri Bivol, who ultimately defeated him, Canelo was able to land clean shots and control certain stretches of the fight. Bivol had to fight a near-perfect bout, using every bit of his size and reach advantage to keep Canelo from getting into his rhythm. But Crawford, he would be giving up all those physical edges before even stepping into the ring?
Canelo's a hell of a fighter. There's a lot of great Mexican fighters. That's not for me to rate fighters. I just take my hat off to so many fighters that paved the way, for me to be.
Mayweather understands what it takes to move up successfully. He did it the right way, gradually, calculating every move and picking the right opponents at the right time. Crawford, on the other hand, would be making an enormous leap without any experience in the weight class. And that's where the real danger lies. Crawford is at his best when he dictates the pace, forcing opponents to react to his game plan. But against Canelo, he'd have to fight on Canelo's terms, and that's a problem. Showbiz the Adult made another key point: Crawford's tendency to exchange. Unlike Mayweather, who avoided unnecessary risks, Crawford likes to mix it up. He gets into firefights. He wants to prove he can hurt his opponent. That mentality is part of what makes him such a great fighter, but it's also what could cost him dearly against Canelo.
Which fight was more difficult between Mayweather or Bivol, and why?
I think both are similar, just Bivol is bigger.
Trading shots with a bigger, stronger man is a dangerous game, and in this case, it's one Crawford can't afford to play. Mayweather has also alluded to the concept of ring wear and tear. Canelo, despite his extensive career, has developed an approach that minimizes the damage he takes in fights. He doesn't waste energy. He picks his shots and conserves his stamina for the later rounds, where his pressure really begins to wear opponents down. Crawford, for all his talent, is stepping into a fight where he won't just be tested skill for skill. He'll be forced to survive in deep waters where Canelo thrives.
Easy, man. Cakewalk. Easy. Y'all sitting up here, y'all praising this dude. This dude was nothing. I was almost 40 years old when I cooked this dude. Easy.
A major talking point has been Crawford's defense. He's a slick fighter, no doubt. But when you look at the fighters he's faced at 147, there's a clear pattern. None of them were relentless, pressure-heavy fighters like Canelo. Sean Porter was aggressive, but his pressure was more erratic than systematic. Errol Spence, known for his technical pressure, was already compromised when he fought Crawford, and he lacked the head movement and ring-cutting ability that Canelo possesses. Canelo is different. He doesn't chase, he stalks. He doesn't just throw punches, he places them. Against a naturally smaller man, that becomes an even greater advantage.
It's happened. You can't really hate on it. But I'm excited for that. I know Canelo is so big, so strong, and I think he'll be just too big. I mean, weight classes matter for a reason.
Mayweather's own history against bigger fighters speaks volumes. He fought bigger men like Oscar De La Hoya, Miguel Cotto, and Canelo himself. But in each of those fights, he brought something unique to the table. He had a defensive wizardry that was unmatched. He had a style built to negate power. Crawford is an elite fighter, but he's not a defensive mastermind like Floyd. He gets hit more often than Mayweather ever did, and against Canelo, that could be the defining factor. Then there's the question of endurance. Moving up in weight is one thing. Carrying your stamina into those later rounds against a bigger opponent is another. Crawford has never had to carry extra weight while fending off the kind of body attack that Canelo brings. And if there's one thing Mayweather has pointed out in the past, it's that fatigue makes cowards of even the best fighters. If Crawford slows down, even for a moment, Canelo will capitalize.
Great fight, and he wins. If Crawford can get him down to 160, I make it a pick fight. If Crawford can get him down to 154 or 157, Crawford is, in my view, a big favorite in the fight. 168, I still have to favor Canelo.
It's not just about what happens in the fight, it's about how the fight plays out over time. Crawford might start strong, he might even win the early rounds with his speed and timing, but over 12 rounds, can he keep a 168-pound pressure fighter off of him? Can he maintain the same sharpness in round 10 that he had in round 2? That's what Mayweather and others who know boxing at the highest level are questioning. At this point, it's not even about whether Crawford could win. It's about how much of a toll this fight would take on him. Even if he survives, even if he hears the final bell, what kind of damage will he sustain? Will he still be the same fighter afterward?
Canelo versus Crawford, the biggest fight in the game.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, like when you looking at Ryan Garcia and Tank Davis, this is the next thing beyond.
Mayweather has made a career out of understanding risk versus reward. He's never been the guy to take unnecessary chances, and that's why his words, however measured they may be, tell you everything you need to know. He doesn't believe this is the right move for Crawford. He won't come out and say it's a mismatch in those exact words, but read between the lines, and the conclusion is obvious. Dimitri Bivol's take on Canelo versus Crawford brings another perspective that few in the sport can offer. As one of the only men to have outclassed Canelo Alvarez in the ring, Bivol understands firsthand what it takes to outmaneuver the Mexican superstar. His words carry weight, not just because he's an undefeated world champion, but because he's experienced the very challenge Crawford is now seeking to take on.
Right. I don't think Crawford's ready for this level of smoke. You know what I'm saying? Hey, Canelo's a different man. He's a different beast. He's a different animal. Hey, it's weight class for a reason. Hey, I'm gonna say, hey, bro, Crawford, you stick your hand in some shit you might not want to stick your hand in. So.
And while he acknowledges Crawford's greatness, he also makes it clear that boxing's fundamental truth remains unchanged. Weight classes exist for a reason. Bivol's measured response is telling. He admires Crawford. He calls him one of his favorite fighters, but he stops short of giving him a strong endorsement against Canelo. Instead, he leaves it open-ended, saying Crawford's team will have to find a solution. That phrase alone suggests that beating Canelo at 168 pounds isn't just a challenge. It's a puzzle that needs solving, a mountain that requires a specific strategy to climb. And if Crawford gets any part of it wrong, the consequences could be severe.
I think Canelo's gonna put the beats on him like Dr. Dre.
Do we get a knockdown from Canelo, or does Bud knock down Canelo?
Nah, Canelo's not going down. You could hit Canelo with a Louisville slugger. He's just gonna smile at you.
They ain't say gonna beat him.
One of the most interesting things about Bivol's comments is how they subtly reinforce a common concern among boxing purists. The size difference here isn't just a minor obstacle, it's the defining factor of the fight. Bivol himself was able to beat Canelo because he was the naturally bigger man, and he used every inch of that advantage. His jab, his control of distance, his ability to absorb Canelo's best shots, these were all built on the foundation of being the naturally stronger, heavier fighter. Even then, Bivol fought an extremely disciplined fight, sticking to his plan for all 12 rounds. Could Crawford do the same? And if he does, would it even be enough?
They're throwing so much money at boxing, and the guy who's the head of boxing over there wants to make that fight happen. I think Terence Crawford, forget about the 3 weight classes. I think he could beat Canelo.
Unlike Bivol, Crawford is a career lightweight turned welterweight who has never fought anyone remotely close to Canelo's natural size. Even his recent jump to 154 was met with skepticism, despite his dominant win over Israel Madrimov. Madrimov was a skilled opponent, but he wasn't Canelo Alvarez. The difference in strength, durability, and experience at the weight class is staggering. Canelo has spent years trading shots with men who walk around at 190 plus pounds outside of training camp. Crawford, on the other hand, has made a career out of being the slicker, sharper, more skilled fighter at lower weights. The question is, does that skill set translate against a fighter like Canelo? Bivol's success against Canelo came largely from his ability to neutralize Alvarez's pressure. He didn't let Canelo bully him, and he refused to let Canelo's signature body attack slow him down.
You know, like he say, when they ask him for the Germonta fight, they don't want to get credit for that fight. It's the same for me. I don't need to take that fight because everybody's gonna say it's too small, and then, he needs to enjoy his fight.
But Bivol was able to do that because he had the physical tools to take those shots and keep moving. He was taller, had a longer reach, and was accustomed to taking punches from genuine light heavyweights. Crawford, he won't have those luxuries. The extra weight he puts on might give him a fraction more durability, but will it come at the cost of his agility and endurance? Will he be as sharp as he was at 147 or 154? These are the kinds of questions that linger in the minds of those who aren't fully convinced that this is a winnable fight for Crawford. Another point worth noting is Bivol's restraint in his prediction. When asked directly if he thought Crawford could win, his response, "I can imagine it," is a careful way of saying it's possible, but not probable. If he were confident in Crawford's ability to pull off the upset, he likely would have said so outright. Instead, he leaves room for doubt.
Which a lot of people don't give him the credit for. I think that fight, if it does happen, as long as Crawford stays away and just boxes and be smart, he can win that fight. I think Crawford's a better fighter than Charlo. And he's a smart fighter as well. He switches and everything, so that would be a very good fight.
And in boxing, when someone of Bivol's stature isn't ready to fully endorse a fighter's chances, that speaks volumes. The reality is that Bivol's victory over Canelo wasn't just about skill, it was about game planning and physical attributes. He fought in a way that completely neutralized Canelo's offense, using his reach, size, and discipline to shut down Alvarez's ability to land anything meaningful. Crawford, for all his brilliance, is not a natural defensive specialist in the way Bivol is. He likes to engage. He thrives on adjustments and counters. He wants to set traps and force his opponents to make mistakes. But against a fighter like Canelo, will those adjustments even have time to develop before the physicality of the fight catches up to him?
Bud versus Canelo, based on last fight, is a 50-50. So Canelo fights an undisputed champ, up-and-coming former champion, and an up-and-coming undefeated contender. And somehow those three last opponents are somehow compared to Bud's Madrimov fight, making it a 50-50 fight? Wow.
One overlooked aspect of this fight is stamina. Canelo's conditioning at 168 is a known quantity. He's fought numerous 12-round fights at the weight, pacing himself in a way that allows him to apply pressure without burning out. Crawford, on the other hand, has never been forced to fight at such a high weight for 12 rounds against an elite opponent. Carrying extra weight while still maintaining the same level of movement and sharpness is a challenge that can't be ignored. Bivol's endurance and work rate played a key role in his win over Canelo, and it's unclear if Crawford, who has never fought at this level of physicality, can replicate that. Well, what's your take? Share your thoughts below and don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more updates.